obviously a unique criterium. Of course, this Clinch Avenue climb has really been the deciding factor year after year in the finale.
No doubt, a lot of the riders already talking about you have to win the right-hand turn on the uphill climb into Church Avenue to State Street, essentially to win the race. Yes, Clinch Avenue, like you said, is uphill, but if you don't get in good position off of State Street, it's almost too little too late, because once you do that final turn onto Gay Street, it's a downhill sprint finish, and by then the race has been decided.
It's a really race to the third from last turn, as we've seen in previous years. If you can win to this uphill or get the lead on the uphill here, it's smooth sailing out of that last corner. We saw with Kendall Ryan last year, had a clear lead out of the final corner and held on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we'll also talk about the conditions out there today. Little different this year, cooler. The rain came in a little bit earlier today, but that has since subsided. Still pretty humid out there, a little bit muggy, but cooler temperatures I'm sure will be welcome for the riders.
Yeah, it is a little bit cooler this year, and so it's just so nice. Yes, it was raining the last couple of days, and that played a factor into the time trial, but not so much tonight. Clear roads, nice and dry, should be a great race.
Roads have since dried out, so that should be perfect for the riders that unfortunately had to race in the rain in the time trial, but they'll get some nicer conditions out there today. Let's talk about some of the favorites. I think when you look at the big names on this list, defending champ Kendall Ryan has got to be at the top, looking for her third in a row.
No doubt, and Kendall and the team, Legion team, swept the podium last year, 1, 2, and 3, so that's a very formidable team to go up against. They basically have been racing so well all season up until this point, so I see tonight being no different, Brad.
DNA Pro Cycling been having a great season with Daphne Karaganis on the start list here. Found Cycling always has a great nationals as well, so we'll be looking for those dark green jerseys out there. Maybe a good pick for an underdog here.
They do. They're always a very aggressive team run by Jen Wheeler, and they have, again, they've had a very good year up until this point as well. Had a good time trial yesterday, so again, easing into this race weekend, and yeah, like you said, they're going to be excited to go out there and put their name out front.
We see two new teams on this list, the Denver Disruptors, new for 2023 with Erica Zavetta and Andrea Sear, and her Miami Knights team currently leading the American Criterium Cup, so they've been doing a lot of criterium racing this season.
Yeah, right. New teams, but not new to racing. So again, Erica and Andrea both know crit racing very well, have been having a stellar season. So yeah, again, we don't really know how nationals are going to play out, because it's always the one day. The Stars and Stripes is such an important day to every team and every racer.
Skylar Schneider on that list makes it all the more dangerous for Legion of Los Angeles as well, having 2 cards to play. And then the big wild card, Corinne Lebecki. We never really know how Corinne's going to do at Nationals, because we don't get to see her race a lot here in the United States. Had a good result last year. Can she improve on it this year?
Right, she was 4th last year, looking back at results. So never discount Corinne Lebecki. She is one of the best, one of the smartest bike racers out there. Yes, she is by herself today, but she knows how to play to that advantage and use the other teams as best she can.
How much does it change from year to year as the dynamics of the teams and riders and things like that change? Are we pretty much looking at the same favorites, even though some riders have shuffled teams and things like that? How much does that affect the racing?
A little bit, Brad. I mean, you know, again, you're looking at someone like Legion of Los Angeles. That team is a stacked team, so they know how to race. And yes, they've done this year after year and race after race up until right now. So they are definitely your outright favorites for tonight. But, you know, again, like you're saying, Corinne can kind of pick and choose someone else in the peloton to work hopefully against.
Kendall Ryan with a big bullseye on her back. How does that change her racing? I mean, is there anything that Ryan can do, having won 2 already? Does it get harder going for the 3rd time? Did she have the same bullseye on her back last year?
I would think it's almost not easier for her, but a little bit less pressure to go for the 3rd win versus the 2nd win. She was very confident, very excited for this race, and she's definitely going to want to win again tonight.
This run-up to Nationals has maybe been a little different for Ryan as well. Had a different run-in at Tulsa with the DQ there in the sprint. So does that change your mindset, or is Ryan the kind of rider that will be able to shake that and move on to Nationals?
I think she can definitely shake that, no doubt, and kind of move on. Again, being around their team this morning, and men's and women's team, they get on so well together, and they were very relaxed. But yes, she's very much focused on tonight. And she, again, when you have such a good team around you, like the Ryan sisters together and the Snyder sisters, I mean, it just makes you relaxed, and you know that they're going to get the job done.
We'll see some of our front row riders getting the call up right now, and Looks like Kendall Ryan will get the last one alongside a star-studded front row here. How important is it to start at the front on a course like this, Lauren?
I think there's time to settle in for tonight. On the first turn, there's a little bit of a downhill, and it's a wide course. And again, this is what a lot of riders talk about. It's hard to get a breakaway there because it's such a wide course. But, you know, I think it's not necessarily that important to be at the front off the beginning.
So you see some of our front row riders lining up here. Fountain Cycling going to start with Kathleen Abity. That'll be one of the riders to watch on the front row. Talking about that team, again, we don't see them race a lot of the criteriums. They're not following that American Criterium Cup series, so it's nice to see them put some riders at the front of the crit here tonight. Next to her, United Cycling with Catherine Amon here, your collegiate club criterium national champion, riding out of Durham, North Carolina. It's another team that could have some solid results here, bringing a big squad. Skylar Schneider coming off of a good campaign up north, just flew in from the Tour of America's Dairyland. She won a day there, including her hometown race in West Dallas, Wisconsin. So a little confidence for her coming into the national championships. And of course, Corinne Lebecki back from Europe, now living in Lancaster, Pennsylvania with Team Jumbo-Visma.
Yeah, Corinne's, like we talk about, I mean, she's always such a good wild card and always eager for a good win. She's won nationals on this course before, road nationals. So it's, yeah, Corinne's going to be a force tonight.
Erica Zavetta gets a front row call up with her Denver Disruptors as well. And then looks like DNA getting, is that Kim Lucci next to her?
That is Kim Lucci. Yeah, again, I got to see the entire DNA squad yesterday. And again, focused but calm.
And then next to her will be the American Criterium Cup leader with her Miami Nice squad, Andrea Sear, looking for her best nationals results yet.
I think Andrea can play off the Legion battle and work with Corinne on some things and potentially get up the road and hopefully get a podium tonight.
If you are an American cycling fan, this is a view you haven't seen in a while. Kendall Ryan outside of her Stars and Stripes jersey, back in the standard Legion kit as she looks to get it back. Your total race time, 70 minutes. Well, that is a powerful front row here. If you're not ready for the start of this race, they are going to be in for a rough start because there is some serious power on the front of this group. Wide open backside of this course as well. Is it dangerous to get caught at the back of this race? I mean, do you need to worry about moving up early on in a field like this?
Well, I was just looking, you know, DNA has 8 athletes here tonight, 8 riders. So that's someone that if you are at the back, hey, you've got plenty of teammates to cover you. Nothing to really be worried about, surf around. But, you know, Corinne can't be at the back.
72 riders on the start list here. They'll be racing for 70 minutes. They're going to run on a time-based system. Once they figure out an average lap time, they will then start counting down on laps. So we'll be working off of time first, and then once they get a good average, it'll be maybe 10 or 15 laps in, they will start counting down laps. All right, sounds like we're ready to race. Let's go down for our national anthem.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night.
beautiful start to a beautiful night of racing. We'll take a quick break and be back with live action from the 2023 USA Cycling National Championships.
We are just about 4 minutes away from the start of today's event. Mr. Andy McCord will be getting you into your final.
70 minutes of race time out there, 70 minutes of racing. The lap count will come into effect at 9 laps to go. So once we get down around that time frame, it's going to be quick to set laps. We will see 10 on the lap counter on the left-hand side of the finish line. Cross just above you. The pit closes at 4 laps to go, so that means once it hits 4 to go, no one can exit the pit at that time. So you got a mechanical. Everybody to stay race, keep your heads up.
Late afternoon, early evening here in Knoxville, and time to go racing for our 2023 USA Cycling Criterium National Championships this evening. As we introduced the riders a little bit ago, they are getting their final instructions on the line right now. As we talked about some of the favorites in this race, Lauren, a lot of those names have won here before, or at least been on the podium. In order to predict the future, you must go back and look at the past. I think that's never been more true with Kendall Ryan on our list here.
No doubt, and when you kind of look at a race that you've been to before, a lot of times we go back and look at what happened last year. I know a couple of teams actually went to YouTube and watched the replay of this race just to see how things played out, because you've been to so many races. Heck, we forget how things have gone and who's doing what and how teams are racing, but YouTube never lies. It's always there. And yeah, last year historically Legion went 1, 2, 3. So yeah, if you're going to have any indicator of how well tonight's going to go, look at last year's results.
You see Kendall Ryan's 3 wins already. She'll be looking for her 4th total, 3 in a row. And Corinne Rivera back in 2014, the last time that she won here at the National Championships. It's hard to believe that it was that long ago, but Rivera now racing with her Jumbo-Visma team, obviously a different rider here in 2023.
Yeah, and a whole different peloton, right? So even though we know what has happened in the past, as again, I was talking to some 1s and 2s of riders, it's National Championships. Anything can happen today, and anything is up for grabs. So, you can't discount, or you can look at what happened last year, but you also can take that completely off the table, because again, we have a different peloton, and today is National Championship Day, and only one person gets to wear the Stars and Stripes.
Got a good look at that downhill run into the finish right there. That's going to be a crucial factor in the run in to the line today. As you said, it's really about that race to the 3rd and 2nd to final turn. So we are ready to go here in Knoxville. They're getting the final countdown in our 2023 USA Cycling Professional Criterium National Championships underway. So, Lauren, if you're a favorite in this race, you're looking at 70 minutes of racing. What do you do for the first, let's say, 20 minutes in these opening laps? I mean, do you want to be at the front? Do you want to be near the front? Where do we think we see Kendall Ryan, Corinne Lebecki, names like that hanging out?
I was sitting here thinking, it's a 70-minute race, and when was the last time we did that? If I'm not mistaken, maybe that was Armed Forces in the 50K race. So it's not your typical 45, 50-minute race. It's a little bit longer. It's National Championships. A lot is on the line. But so essentially what I think I would want to do is just settle in. Just everybody is excited. Everybody's nervous. Everybody is here, and so you just want to get these first 5 or 6 laps as a group. Everybody calm down, make sure your radio with your team manager is working. I'm sure we'll go to that later in the broadcast, but yeah, just to kind of get a sense for each other. Be like, hey, we're here, we've started the race. All right, let's calm down, and we know our race plan, and let's start executing our plan when it is time. But first, let's just get a couple of laps under our belt.
Talk to me about the run-up to national championships. For a lot of these riders, we talked about racing up to Tour of America's Dairyland, getting maybe a short block, 3, 4, 5 days of racing in. Some riders took the week off or the past couple weeks off from racing. Is that a personal decision? I mean, how does that call get made on what your preparation for nationals will be?
It's actually, it's personal, and it's also a team decision, because someone like the DNA squad, they've basically been racing straight since DC, so essentially the beginning of June, and they're finishing with this race. And they've got the likes of Heidi Franz, who's come over from Europe to do this race. So, you know, and where some of the other teams took a break like you're talking about and prep specifically for tonight. So it changes with each team, what their goals are for the year and what the team asks of you as a rider, and kind of what you can negotiate with the team, and you know, get your days off when you need it, and the prep that you need to be ready for tonight.
Saw Skylar Schneider on the front, leading them on to what will be the second to last turn here. So this is what you were talking about, that the race is really decided on this uphill section.
Yeah, exactly. And as a sprinter, what you'll want to do is get that reminder, that sense, that the sensation of the peloton, but you also want to have your key moments in the course of where you think you're going to want to start your sprint. It is potentially going to change, but look, we've been here for a couple years now. Most of the sprinters know when they want to start their sprint. So usually that doesn't change much, but you know, again, just kind of calming your nerves more than anything, and just talking to one another on the radio.
See Skylar Schneider on the front there, part of the 2 duos of sisters racing on that Legion of Los Angeles team. Skylar racing with her older sister Samantha, and then Kendall Ryan, our defending champ, racing with her sister Alexis on that squad. So 2 sets of sisters, both racing on the Legion of Los Angeles team today.
Yeah, and if you were to pick any of those 4, any of them are great sprinters in their own right and can win a race outright. So, hey, if you're going to be the best sprinter in the world and in the U.S. for Crit Nationals, what better than to have them help lead you out?
How does that get decided for a team like Legion of Los Angeles? Because there are 4 riders on this list that are all capable of winning the national championship here, but only if the team cooperates. So how does that call get made? Is it on the road? Do they flip a coin?
Right, they roll dice? No. I would think probably just, again, the Stars and Stripes, Kendall's won it in the past. There's a lot of weight to that. There's a lot of pressure for that. And potentially, you know, Skylar or Sam may not necessarily want to win, may not be a priority for them, and want to help Kendall go for it again. Who knows? But, you know, again, any of them can win. And, yeah, like you said, if Kendall's not feeling it for whatever reason, I can't imagine that's the case. But, yeah, that's just part of the team goal. And, like I said, any of them can win.
Starting to see a bunch of these pink jerseys come to the front. DNA Pro Cycling starting with 8 riders on the roster here in Knoxville. Biggest team on the start list here. How do they use that to their advantage? How do you use numbers like that?
Right. You have the potential definitely to have a bigger lead out, a longer lead out, more protection for your sprinter. You can pad behind her, have a couple of sweepers, or you can go on the offensive and just start attacking like crazy and hoping that that'll disrupt Legion a little bit. We're talking a lot about Legion because this is their race to lose, essentially. So, but yeah, when you have 8 riders, you can definitely try and stack the break, get someone up the road, put pressure under these other teams too, and maybe draw out the likes of Lorenzo Becky.
Already starting to see it string out a little bit. 70 minutes in here. Riders are just a few minutes into the 70 minutes of racing. 5 minutes of racing down so far. Riders in the back not looking too nervous right now. Not seeing a whole lot of urgency to get up to the front. Sometimes we'll see that washing machine effect later in the race, but the riders looking pretty comfortable right now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we talk about the length of the race, and as it goes on and the amount of times you go up Church Street over and over and how hard they go up Church Street, that's when it'll start wearing on you. And if you've been, again, I talk about nerves, because if you're nervous, that takes away from your ability. It takes away just from your stamina. So you know, you got to be able to just be able to relax and kind of get into a rhythm and into a flow for tonight. And if you don't, that will spit you out the back really fast.
How does the addition of a new rider like Corinne Lebecki change things? Because we've been watching a lot of these matchups. We've seen Kendall Ryan go up against Andrea Sear, go up against Skylar Schneider in multiple races this season, but Nationals will be the one unique race of the year where we see the European pros come back like Corinne Lebecki. So adding a big name in there, does that change anything for, let's say, a favorite like Kendall Ryan? She's been beating a team like DNA, although they were able to beat her a couple times this season. But do you change things knowing that Corinne is in the field now?
It's a bit of a joker, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker. And we also have Aisha McGowan is back from Europe coming over to do this race too. So these are, you know, you haven't been over Europe. You don't really know what's going on over there. You don't know how their fitness is. You don't know how their travel was coming back to the States, how their run-in into nationals is going. So you have to be aware of them, but you can't base your plan around them. You have to stick with what you've been doing, what's been working in the races that you've been racing everybody else in, and see if you can't just fine-tune it ever so slightly to come out with a win tonight.
Riders using the full width of the road here as they make their way back onto the climb. Riders spreading across the road gives them a few more options on the line, a few more ways to move up. That will change. Go back and look at how last year's played out. It was really a race to that right-hand turn. And we saw Kendall Ryan get up there into second, third wheel, and then moved up right here to the front, won that final corner and held on. Is that a lesson you can learn? You talked about the teams going back to watch YouTube. I would think that's something that kind of sticks out, and you say, well, let's just make sure Kendall can't do that again.
It sounds so simple, right? And we use the word just. If you could just go ahead and take that, make that attack at the bottom, right? It sounds easy, but it's a lot harder to execute. But you know, again, you can kind of look back at these races and, you know, what can we do different? And you can almost look at your race instead of looking at how they won. Look at how you lost, and you're probably going to learn a lot more that way of what did we do wrong and how can we correct it, and you know, make it right for this race specifically for tonight.
You see his DNA Pro Cycling getting to the front here. I think that's going to be a story that we see a lot over the next 62 minutes of racing here. Obviously, DNA with the big numbers will have a lot of responsibility to get to the front, but they're also a team that's not afraid to use those numbers. They're not afraid to be aggressive. They're not afraid to get organized. They have a very well-oiled program, and they can manage that many riders. Some teams will have the numbers, but they can't really get them organized. Not really the case with DNA.
Yeah, and I would imagine, and I'm pretty sure they all have race radios, and they have their team director. They've got Kathy probably sitting in the pits, but I've also saw that they brought in Jack C. Hafer. So between the two of them, hopefully, you know, they can have a conversation with everyone. And I would think that Kim Lucci may be the in-race captain for tonight, because Kim is again one of their last lead-outs. So yeah, I mean, having that conversation, reminding the athletes of what the plan is, seeing how the race is playing out on the live stream right now, and then, you know, kind of changing things up as it goes.
Things starting to heat up now. Seeing some United Cycling jerseys coming up the right-hand side of our screen right here, using the opportunity to move up. But then you see the riders at the front kind of counter that. Disruptors getting out of the saddle a little bit. Legion sitting up just a little bit here, as it seems like this pace starting to pick up. Siniska starting to move to the front as well. Haven't talked a lot about them, but some very powerful riders on that squad.
Yeah, I would say Kara O'Neill is kind of going to be one of their better sprinters for tonight. She was sitting third wheel behind her teammate right there. Kara is out of Tucson, Arizona. She's had a couple of knee issues kind of most of this season, but again, Kara has been super strong and has some of the best bike handling skills. So I'm hoping, you know, Kara's feeling 100% tonight.
Like Denver Disruptors leading the ladies through on this lap. The two ladies from the Denver Disruptors.
Denver Disruptors taking control on the front now. Two big teams coming onto the scene from the National Cycling League with the Denver Disruptors and Miami Knights. When you have a big program like that can come onto the scene, it's not just about getting more riders, but it's a well-prepared group of riders, well-supported. How does that change the racing, adding two big teams this year?
Yeah, again, we were talking about this. They're not new to racing. They've been on separate teams, and now you kind of join forces. And when you've got Erica Zaveda and Ava Heckman together on the team, two very good, knowledgeable crit racers, yeah, it changes the dynamics of racing. But again, we've all been racing together now for half a year. So everyone kind of knows each other in this peloton, minus the ones and twos that we're talking about, the Aisha McGowan on Live Giant and the Corinne Lebecki on Jumbo Visma. Then you bring in the Fount Cycling. These are the unknowns too, that they've been racing with us in and out. We're not quite sure how they're going to go for nationals, and this is where I come back to, like, nationals is just its own little gem of a weekend. Like, you remember how things have played out, and you can kind of lean on that, and then all of a sudden something swipes your legs out from under you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I never saw that coming. And so you gotta keep your head on a swivel, and you've got to also remember that anything can happen at any time. It's not just another race. This is national championships.
For our viewers new to the sport of bike racing and certainly new to criterium racing, you hear us talking about these teams and talking about individual riders as well. Cycling very much a team sport, so these teams will ride in support of one rider. Which rider that is remains to be seen. And so when we talk about teams like Legion of Los Angeles, like DNA Pro Cycling with big rosters, that makes them all the more dangerous because they have more cards to play. So DNA technically with 8 riders that could win this bike race. Legion of Los Angeles starts 4, Denver Disruptors start 4, and Miami Knights out there starting 3 with Dre Boutine, Andrea Sear, and Taylor Kirk White. So some of the bigger teams, obviously the strength and numbers that we'll be talking about tonight, but make no mistake about it, those teams are riding for one individual rider. As our riders work their way around, coming up on 13 minutes of racing out there. One of the great things we love about racing in Knoxville here, not just the course, but the people. One of the most welcoming towns that we've had the chance to race for Stars and Stripes in. Our reporter Don Dare out on course, chatting with some of the folks today. Sounds like Don's got someone right now. Don.
Wow. Lauren and Brad, this is an exciting race, and we have here some real people who are really excited about this because Scott and Liz, you have been here how many times?
Every year it's been here, 7 years, yes.
7 years.
Yeah.
What's it like for you, Liz?
It's wonderful. We can walk here and watch a great race. It's just a fun time all the way around.
What does this mean for Knoxville, do you think?
Oh, having this 7 years in a row is, you don't see that happen in many cities. We've been going, this race has been on the East Coast for quite a while, in Chattanooga and other places in the Southeast, and 7 years is unheard of. So Knoxville's been very lucky. We're both big bicycling fans, bicycle racing fans. We watch it on TV, the Pro World Tour and stuff, and it's just great. Kind of sad it's leaving Knoxville after this year, but the weather's great. We're here supporting the riders. It's just really exciting. It's great stuff.
Liz, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Have you ever ridden in a race like this?
Heck no.
She's a great bike rider, though. She's a great bike rider.
No, these are like top of the top of the top.
And when they came by here, they weren't going as fast as they'll be going at the end of the race.
No, they will not be going. They're going to go way, way faster.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorites for this race?
No, we always, I mean, we like to see them get through safe. Criterium racing is really dangerous, you know, these curves back here. But Corin Rivera is a Pro World Tour rider with Jumbo, but we like whoever wins, it's always good to maybe see an underdog,
yeah,
because it can make a career for somebody.
Right.
So we just want it to be safe and the racing good, and nobody go to the hospital tonight. That's what we're pulling for.
That's the key, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
and perfect
Yes,
weather.
It is.
And in about, I don't know, not too long from now, we'll see them coming by in a few moments here.
Definitely.
Scott Hollenbeck and Liz Diamond, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, and back to you, Lauren and Brad.
Certainly wishing for the same, a safe route for the riders out there today. You don't see a lot of towns where the locals know about World Tour riders like Corinne Lebecki, so love to see that. It really speaks to the impact of the long-term relationship here in Knoxville.
Right, and I also love that we're, the women is finally getting a lot more TV coverage, here on FloBikes and on all these live streams. So it's, we're finally getting it out there, and now that everyone knows who all these riders are and can cheer them on, just like you're saying, these locals that don't get to go to the World Tour races, the World Tour racers come to them.
Nice shot from the line there. Seeing some of the flags waving in the wind. Just a little bit light breeze out here. I don't think wind is going to be a major factor, and it will probably die down over the next 45 minutes or so as the sun starts to set. So not a huge factor. You do see those flags moving in the wind a little bit, but I don't really feel any major wind affecting it.
No, if anything, it's actually very much perfect for us as a spectator.
More riders using the opportunity here to move up the outside onto the wider section of the course. There's a Jumbo-Visma fan. Greg Lebecki's got a army of fans here in Knoxville.
Got to have the fan club. Vuvuzela's coming out.
Legion DNA gonna put one on the front here. Other riders look pretty comfortable to sit back. That's Danny Mooreshead, the Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 rider on the front. Only rider on that Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 squad. Danny, used to racing with a big squad. How does she change her strategy racing solo here?
She basically can play off of Corinne or Aisha, playing off the bigger teams. So again, you kind of hope that the bigger teams look at each other and fight, and either you can sneak away and play the poker game of who's going to chase that back and hope that she can stay away, or you play off of, hey, it's just me here up the road. I don't have the teammates to bring this back, or I don't have a sprinter back there, so I'm just going to sit here. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to be up here. You know, you can play all the tactics. But yeah, Danny, hey, she's got Shelly Olds in her ear and one of the best sprinters out there. So she's well looked after tonight, even though no one particularly in the race for her is looking after her.
We'll see all of the mechanics and directors in the pit just on the left-hand side of the riders as they make that final turn. Big pit here in Knoxville where the directors get a pretty good view. They also have a giant big screen TV down there that most of the directors will be watching as well. What kind of info are they getting from those directors? I mean, what is the purpose of a director in the pit? Because it seems like the riders have a little bit of leeway on the road to make their own decisions, but they'll also be taking input from these folks on their left-hand side right now.
Yeah, again, it just kind of goes back to nerves, I would say. Just calm down, stick to the plan. Either the plan is working like we asked it or wanted it to, or things are going pear-shaped, and we're going to need you to change up the plan a little bit. And if we're going to change up the plan, here's what we're going to do. And when you're calm on the side of the road and your heart rate is maybe, 75, 80 beats per minute versus 130, 150, 170 towards the end of the race, you can think a little bit more clearly and just have a calm voice in their ear, a reliable person to listen to, and things are going to be okay, and you're doing great. Kind of want that reinforcement that one, the race is going according to plan, or if things are pear-shaped, it's going to be okay, and you just got to dig deep and really, whatever it is, bring the brake back, or give us your last little bit of effort. So that's kind of what's going on with the directors in the pit. Other than that, unless a couple of riders come out, we did see one rider just get pushed back in. Again, if a Heidi Franz of DNA is on the front, potentially driving the pace, they could say, hey, look, we just had one out. Let's chill out for a minute and make sure she's okay, or whoever it was getting pushed back in. So a couple of different reasons to have that calm voice in your ear.
See those wheels being waved here as a United rider going in from the pit on the backside of the course. There are two pits on this course here in Knoxville. One we were talking about where the directors are hanging out, but then we just saw another rider going in, getting what's called the free lap here. That rider going to be on par with everyone else, even though she did not complete this last lap because she was being serviced for what I'm going to guess was mechanical beyond her control. She will get that lap and then go back into the race without being scored a lap down. No advantage to taking the free lap, Lauren. A lot of times people get confused when they see riders going in saying, that seems awesome. You get a lap off, drink some water, get a little rest, but as a rider, you never want to go into the pit.
No, it just kind of takes away from your rhythm, and, again, we saw her getting pushed back in, and she thought she was clipped in, and her left foot was not clipped in yet. So, again, that just puts you out further out the back and a little bit more effort to get back in there, and it just kind of just keeps you on edge. And here we are. We see she really never made it back in. While we have Heidi Franz on the front, DNA Pro Cycling, kind of pushing the pace, making a little bit of separation off the front here.
Well, they're going to get two clear here through the line. Just a little gap, but enough. Call it the early makings of a split here. DNA and Legion both with one in there. DNA sending Heidi Franz up the road, and Legion sending Samantha Schneider here. So that's Franz in the pink, Schneider in the white, and then Skylar Schneider on the front of the field here. We'll see if she can slow things down. Fount's going to get over the top of that and try to tack this one back, but it does look like Legion is trying to block this one a little bit at the front of the field.
Yeah, Sophia Sugar of Fount Cycling is eager to get back to these two. And again, she'll probably make contact with them. And this could potentially be, you know, Heidi's just, you know, testing the legs, either herself or the team tactics of which Legion rider is going to follow me. Usually that's an indicator of, again, if we think Kendall is going to go for the sprint, she's definitely not going to put herself out there and try to cover anything that DNA is doing, like Heidi Franz is doing, and having Sam up the road. That's essentially, you're going to leave Kendall in the pocket, just as chill as possible, as little work as possible, because every time you're out in the wind like that, you're spending energy that needs to be saved for the sprint finish.
Didn't look like Sam Schneider contributed a whole lot to that move, mostly just sat on DNA there. So that reads to me like Legion wants to keep this race together. They're not really interested in a breakaway, nor should they be, because if you look at statistically, if this one comes down to a field sprint, they got the best chance out there.
They do, and it's still a little bit early in the race potentially for Sam to be off the front. So, yeah, that all comes back together.
Nice little counter move coming here from Miami Knights. I think this is Taylor Kirk White, maybe. Might be Boutine. See when they come out of the shadows here. See if anyone goes with her out of the final corner here as well. You need multiple riders in a breakaway, and she's going to get two going with her. Once again, Legion marking the move in the white jersey at the very back. Don't expect to see that rider doing a whole lot of work here.
Looks like Shayna Palace of DNA Pro Cycling.
Skylar Schneider, the Legion rider, trying to keep this one together. Gap actually growing here as they come through the line.
So it is Andrea Boutine putting in a good attack, making this break happen.
And now we'll look to see if DNA and Legion contribute here, because that will be the deciding factor in whether or not this breakaway goes, as Boutine will need the help of these other two riders. A successful breakaway move like this only works if all three riders are contributing, and they need each other here, but I have not seen DNA or Legion get to the front of this group yet, so I'm wondering if Dre Boutine might be out here on her own.
Yeah, she may be, and some of the reasons that you're not going to have DNA or Legion potentially working. Okay, so DNA may want to get up the road and get separated somewhat from a Kendall Ryan of Legion specifically, but if it's the not the right mix of this three that DNA feels comfortable with, they'll just say, hey, look, just sit on, let's reshuffle. We've got 8 riders. This isn't the move we necessarily want. You're good to be there. And if Andrea wants to pull us around all night, all right, that's fine. But otherwise, just sit on, let this come back. We've got Sineska on the front, welding this back together. Look for another attack right off of that one.
We saw Boutine on the radio chatting with either her director or teammates out there. So we'll see if Sear or Kirk White may be set up for a counter move here as Sineska tacks it back. That's them in the white jersey with the orange sleeve on the front. We talked about Kara O'Neill earlier. They also start Claire Windsor, Catherine Sarkisov, and Anna Hicks for 4 riders on that Sineska squad.
Skylar Schneider on the front just saying, hey, look, we're going to have some attacks. We're going to be here and be represented, looking for the next attack to go.
We've already seen Samantha Schneider cover one. We saw Skylar Schneider cover one. We'll just see if Alexis goes, and that would answer the question of who they're riding for here.
Right, and we've got Alexis basically sitting 4th wheel, so just on cue, like you're talking about, Brad. You know, if anybody knows how to be queued up for the next sprint, it's definitely going to be Alexis.
Legion rider with her hand in the air talking to the soigneur there.
And I just see Skylar on the radio too, so potentially just, you know, hey, give us some feedback, give us some information. Maybe they're looking for something specific. Is this okay? We're doing, you know, I don't know. those yet to be seen.
And we will try and chase that down. In the meantime, let's go back out to Don on course, floating around our start-finish line. Don.
Well, Lauren and Brad, we have with me right now is Bobby Stogner, and he's a personal friend of some of these racers, and you had some folks over the other day?
Yeah, these ladies are really awesome. I had the opportunity, I've hosted some riders in the past, and you know, just so they don't have to pay for a hotel and whatever, and feed them and all that stuff. It's been a great experience, and that one of the ones that stayed with us last year is on the DNA cycling team, who you've seen, Don, out here, and I asked them to come out and I barbecue for them, and so we had a great night 2 nights ago, and they're just great folks. They're from all over the country, a real mixture of you know, backgrounds and everything, but they're really quality folks, and we just had a blast.
It's quite the athletes too.
Oh yeah, they are, and they can eat.
Because they burn a lot of calories as we
Yes,
see
they
as
do.
Zip by here.
They do, but really great time.
Do you have any personal favorite in this race?
I'm pulling for Holly Breck. She stayed with us last year, and she's on the DNA cycling team. But also, Skylar Snyder stayed with us 3 or 4 years ago. She's on the Legion team, so I kind of got to pull for her a little bit too. But the DNA folks are, you know, since they came out to eat, they're my team. Right?
They're your team.
They're my team. So.
Bobby Stogner, thank you so much.
Thank you,
for what you do.
Thank you for all you do for Knoxville, and I've always, for years, enjoyed your time on and what you do on the TV.
And this is great for the city, isn't it?
It's awesome. I mean, it's all the national championships year after year. We've had it 6 years. That's unprecedented.
And here they come again.
And here they come again.
Let's get Ruben.
Yeah.
He's going to scoot out of the way.
All righty.
And
Be
Lauren,
safe.
Brad, thank you.
Yeah. Enjoyed seeing you.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you.
Thank you now.
Yeah.
Bobby hosting all the hitters at his house.
Yeah,
we got to get invited to the cookout next year.
Yeah, where's our invite? We don't eat near as much as the athletes do.
Our riders still all together as they roll through the line. Not showing laps quite yet. They are coming up on 30 minutes of racing again. This one's scheduled for 70 minutes of total racing here, so they should be figuring out a good average lap time here pretty soon, and we'll get laps to go. Does the racing change? Does the dynamic change when you have laps to go? You move off the clock, or do you generally know how it's going to go, whether or not you know how many laps are left?
That's a great question. As a sprinter, I never really, I kind of knew how long the race was going to be, and every once in a while I was looking at my computer, but I was always looking at the lap counter, always. So that was always my key to honestly, to really tune into the race. I mean, yes, I was tuned in, but my bit was at the end of the race. So, yes, I was very much paying attention to the middle and the beginning of the race, but that was more of just looking after my teammates, making sure they were good, making sure the radio was good. And again, time kind of passes by pretty fast after that. And so, until I saw laps to go, that's when I really turned my brain off and really started keying in on things.
This looks like 3T Q&M, I think, going to give it a go here on the front. They've got 2 with Galen Bullard and Rachel Jordan. I think that's their kit. Not getting any help there, although the field going single file on the front now to bring that back. So we'll see if this causes another split. There's really no shortage of attempts for breakaways here. Lauren, you talked about your job starting later in the race. Talk to me about some of the other roles, the riders whose job starts from the gun, let's say. Who are the riders that are watching that clock early on, and how do those roles get decided, and who does what? Tell me about some of the different techniques and roles on the teams.
Yeah, someone like Galen Bullard right here off of 3TQ&M on the front, potentially may know that she's not going to be sprinting head-to-head against Kendall. So she's going to try and get out early, try and make a break early, try and put pressure under the other teams, hopefully for Rachel to have another attack later in the race. And so that's what teams do. They essentially say, hey, look, Kendall, you're the sprinter, and everyone else is kind of covering and working to keep Kendall safe, working to kill the brakes, working to be represented, and that's essentially like how it's played out. Again, like you've got Kendall in the pocket, you've got Corinne Lebecki that has to basically be all of those roles. So, it's just these are the factors that you have to take in. Either you have 8 riders like DNA Pro Cycling does, or you've got the one Aisha McGowan.
30 minutes in here, major shift in the dynamic now as this field has gone single file pretty much front to back. That generally tells us that speed's starting to pick up as the overall tempo of the race gets higher. You'll see them go into that single file formation as things slow down a little bit. They go back to the group formation that we saw earlier. So that means that those riders on the front are starting to hit it. They're starting to drive it, and that's because these riders are looking for breakaways. They're trying to spoil the day for the sprinters like Kendall Ryan. And to do that, you need to either get into a breakaway or make the race so hard and so fast that Ryan either can't get there or the team can't control whatever that is. So now we're seeing it calm down a little bit after that fast lap, but we are starting to see that tempo pick up.
This is the part of the course where we see that it's hard for a breakaway to stick because the road is so wide and you can see so far. You can potentially see your breakaway. You can see the distance that they are, how they're working, and it's easy for the entire group to essentially swarm around each other and easy to make your way up to the front. Now, when we see them go State Street clinch, when they're single file right there, that means the race is going hard. If they are fanned out and it's 3 or 4 wide, they're not necessarily going hard. Here we have DNA Pro Cycling basically kind of leading it out into these climbs. So, you know, maybe they're wanting to put pressure on the peloton for the rest of the race of like, hey, we just need to make this race hard. That's one way we can potentially beat Kendall. We don't want her to be fresh as a daisy coming to the line. We want to make this race hard. We've got 8 riders. We need to take this race to this peloton right now.
Riders using the opportunity to move up here. Just saw Zoe Clay moving up the left side of our picture in that Velocia Sport kit with the NCC across the chest. Moved up to about 10th spot. It is a constant battle to fight for position out there. We're seeing a lot of riders, especially on that wide back side of the course that you were talking about, use that opportunity to just move up 5, 10, 15 places maybe. Take the opportunity when you can, I guess. Clay right there on the outside. 1.1 miles around the circuit here in downtown Knoxville. As our pro men going to be doing 80 minutes. These riders set for 70 on the start list here. Again, a time-based system, pretty unique to American criterium style of racing. That's something we don't really see anywhere else. I don't know any other sport where you would have a clock that switches to laps. Maybe they do it in motorsports racing, I'm not sure, but that's one of the unique parts about criterium racing.
Yeah, they do it in Supercross for sure, but yeah, this is what you're talking about, and that's what Don was when he was interviewing the fans, when they were saying it's dangerous, it's argy-bargy, it's, you know, you're constantly turning, the peloton's constantly swarming, you're never 20 kilometers on a straight road. There's left and right turns. You know, the pace goes hard, it slows down, so it's just a constant fluctuation of effort and people around you, and that makes it dangerous. And again, you've got the race tactics right now of Corinne Lebecki kind of going hard, and so again, alarm bells go off. People want to be on her wheel as soon as possible, and so sometimes they just kind of pop out and try and make this attack instead of this long, drawn-out 20-kilometer relax. We've got this under control. It's an immediate result of bringing back and immediate counterattacks as we're seeing right now. So that is the essence of crit racing. It's fast, it's tight, it's a whole lot of going on in a little bit of time.
Lebecki drawing these riders out now. If she was looking for the hitters in the field, she just found them. Nice little counter move coming off of Lebecki, picking up that tempo there. Just felt it was a little too easy and got to the front, lifted the tempo, and DNA said, we're in, we'll play that game. So DNA put some riders up on the front, along with Siniska and Miami Knights up there. This is interesting to see so many teams being aggressive here. Legion is really the only team that's riding defensively. I think everyone else has been putting in attacks here. Legion is the one that's just kind of sitting on here.
No, you're exactly right. And when you've got DNA of 8 riders, they have to be represented up there. And again, they've had a hard time beating Legion this year. So again, you kind of got to take the race to her. You got to be aggressive, go on the offensive, and hopefully, you know, get her to mess up. How can we get her to mess up?
Siniska, second wheel. And that DNA third wheel. Legion, Miami Knights, and Denver Disruptors all there. Now
split at the front here. A couple riders looking at a couple different lines. Nice little elbow flick right there, looking for some help. Not going to get it from the white jersey behind you, unfortunately, but it's worth a shot. You never know until you try.
And I'm laughing because, okay, so Heather Fisher's like, hey, let's work and let's just get this up the road. And, you know, Skylar Schneider is like, no, that's not part of our plan at all, but it's always worth a shot. You know, you never know. Maybe she'll forget.
My mom always used to say the worst they can say is no, right? It never hurts to ask. And Skylar Schneider just gave a big old no right there to the elbow flick. What that lead rider was trying to do for any new fans or new to the sport, she's trying to signal to the rider behind that she wants them to take over setting the tempo and wants them to keep this high tempo. So if you're trying to make the race fast, you would then accelerate and take over the lead. But if you're trying to keep this race together like Legion is, then you're just going to ignore that and pretend that you didn't see it.
No, and you can see sometimes teams will work together just to keep the race hard, and the reason they will want to do that is to keep it safe. The harder the race, the harder it is to move up, especially on this wide road. So, you know, that is always a potential of, hey, it just feels a little uncomfortable. Again, we're talking that this is national championships. This is an important race for everyone. So all bets are off, and sometimes more risk is taken, which is unnecessary. So the best way to kind of negate that is to just keep the race hard if you are a full team and a qualified team and an experienced team like Legion, like DNA Pro Cycling. So yeah, that's always kind of a factor too, but I feel like we're in the race long enough now, some of those nerves have worn off.
Fount getting some riders up to the front here as well. They were aggressive early on, took a few laps off, but now back up there. Interesting to see only one human-powered health jersey in this field. That is a team that has oftentimes brought, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rider rosters, but human-powered health with just one, Michaela McPherson here.
Again, DNA Pro Cycling on the front, pushing the pace every time on this climb. This looks like Holly Brett right here on the front. You'll see her, sometimes she'll turn her head. At this point, the crowd is so loud. If the director, who is standing right there to the left, if they are sitting there on the radio, usually that's when they talk to them, is when they come through near them. And sometimes you can't hear them, so you kind of turn your head a little bit because the wind plays a factor. And you're also just kind of checking over your shoulder to see who is following intently on your wheel.
Incoming program, they're doing a great job this year. I actually got to speak with their team manager, Robin Farina.
DNA back to the front. Legion with 3 in 3rd, 4th, and 5th spot. All 3 except Kendall Ryan.
And like you were saying at the beginning of the broadcast, when she's not in her Stars and Stripes jersey, she's really hard to pick out. I mean, I haven't found her. I haven't seen her in the peloton yet. Not that I've been looking, but, you know, when you try to pick her out, usually it's extremely easy, right? So that's a good thing for her. It's a good thing for her team. Not so good for the other teams.
DNA has really been in control of this one, as they should. The team with the most riders out there. A lot of teams are going to look to them as well when you try and figure out, all right, who's going to chase this breakaway, who's going to control Legion, who's going to take over at the front of the field late in the race. All eyes go to the biggest team.
We got DNA moving up the left side as a group, kind of all sticking together at this point. Maybe just potentially moving up a Heidi Fran, saying, hey, look, we're all together. Let's be represented at the front. It's the safest place to be.
Moving up the right side of the screen here. DNA going to use the full depth of their roster on the front now. This is all hands on deck for them as they put everyone up to the front here. So back up the Clinch Avenue climb, back to the line where they should be getting laps to go here pretty shortly. Let's go back out to Don Dare on course, who's been chatting with some of the great folks involved with the bike race all day.
Florida Brad, I'm here with Kim Bumpus. She is president of Visit Knoxville, and this is quite an event, isn't it?
It is. We are so grateful that we've had this event for the last 7 years, and tonight is fantastic.
Yeah, we had some bad weather the last few days, and here they come right now.
Woo!
Yeah, let's watch it for a second. Look at them.
They're
Quite
fast.
the athletes, aren't they?
Yeah, they're going fast tonight. This weather's helping them a lot.
And we were kind of worried about that earlier.
We were. Well, we ran the time trials in some cold rain yesterday,
Sure was.
yeah.
I had my raincoat with me here, I had my hat with me, and an umbrella behind me. But what has this meant for Knoxville to have the racing?
You know, this has been tremendous. You know, it helped put the Visit Knoxville Sports Commission on the map. Since we posted this 7 years ago, we've generated over $35 million in economic impact while telling the story of why you should visit Knoxville through the platform of cycling. So it's been a big deal, you know, and it's led to other events like the Bassmaster Classic, USA Diving Olympic Trials next year, just so much stuff.
And it's good for Knoxville, too, because we're a bicycle-friendly city, aren't we?
We are. We have the terrain that fits this race perfectly. So, you know, it's a bittersweet day because it is their last time in Knoxville for a while, but they'll be back, I promise you.
They'll be back.
Oh, yeah.
We'll hold you to that.
Oh, I'll be there.
Kim Bumpus from Visit Knoxville, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good. Brad and Lauren, back to you.
Kim, one of our favorite people to see every year here at USA Cycling Professional National Championships. One of the people that make us feel so welcome here in Knoxville.
35 million. Did you hear that? Where are we going next?
I think we spent about $1 million at Mahalo Coffee Roasters up the street, so that's our contribution to it over the last 7 years.
Agreed. Good spot.
Corinne Lebecki making a move up to the front here. When we talk about Lebecki, we're talking about this rider in the yellow jersey right here, the only rider that you'll see in this field in the yellow kit. She'll be easy to pick out. Also has no teammates in here, so it makes it that much easier. I like when riders have some unique kits. See the LA Sweat kit there in green too. Nice little change of pop of color in the peloton.
But while we were interviewing Kim, not a lot has happened, but a break tried to go. 5 or 6 riders. It was too big of a break, but it was enough to start spitting some of the athletes out the back. So, you know, we're now down to the nitty-gritty. Things are starting to happen. Breaks are starting to stretch out the peloton, put people under pressure. So things are about to get real sticky.
All right, Lauren, it is your time to shine. We're down to 10 laps to go on the counter as they're showing them laps now, moving off the clock and onto the lap counter. So they just saw 10 as they went through the line. They'll see 9 next time through. That means time for Sam Schneider to hit the gel here, or try.
Again, you see Legion not working. They're covering, they're killing, they're being represented, but this isn't, you know, they want to save it for the field sprint. They're going to want to do a lead out. But again, we've got Miami Knights now going on the attack. We've had DNA giving it a go. Everybody kind of wants to put Legion specifically under pressure. But again, in that last breakaway, they took Corinne up the road, and it's just not the right group. So you got to have the right mix to roll off the front. And, you know, DNA's looking for it. Siniska's looking for it. CCB is looking for it. But it just hasn't been the right mix quite yet.
Again, it's going to take multiple riders. The Knights getting a counter off of their move from DNA, but not getting any help with the move. So it seems like that's going to be the story for the next couple laps here. Multiple attacks going to go as they saw 10 laps to go. That kind of starts the alarm bells ringing like it's down to it. So if you were hoping to win this race in a field sprint, you're now starting to watch these breakaways and saying, all right, I only have to control this for 10 more laps.
Right, Heidi Franz of DNA Pro Cycling is now driving the front of the race. I think it's Heidi. It might, that may be Daphne Karaganis, actually.
That looks like Karaganis to me, gritting her teeth on the front. This had to be a pre-planned move. They knew exactly when they wanted to do this because we were watching the DNA riders amass at the front earlier. So pretty clear that trying to split it was in their plan tonight.
No doubt. And sometimes if the Legion riders sit on, this is when Daphne can look back and be like, hey, I'll take you up the road. Don't you want to try? You know, you try and pit teammates against teammates, but you got to play all the tactics. It didn't work. It's all back together, but you know, DNA's got to keep trying.
Legion has been so good at covering these moves. We've got to give credit to Skylar Schneider, Alexis Ryan, Samantha Schneider. Pretty much every move that goes, they're there to cover it. Kendall Ryan hasn't had to do a thing out there tonight.
Exactly, and that's, you know, that's when you give all thanks to your teammates when you cross the finish line first.
Going to take him down to 9 laps to go. Carrigain is still on the front and still marked by Skylar Schneider. Kendall Ryan about 15 wheels back, maybe 20, a little further back in the field than I would have expected, but I think that just speaks to, oh, there she is, made her way up to the front. It didn't take long for her to get there. It took the length of the start-finish stretch to get Kendall Ryan up to the front. So now we are starting to see Legion shepherd their sprinter up to the front. And the way that we've been seeing them riding, there is no question now that they're riding for Kendall in the finish.
100%. When you, like you said, it's 9 laps to go. Now Kendall's going to be near the front, stay at the front. This is the safest place to be, and when she's ready to execute the plan, she is there and ready.
Well, fans starting to gather along the start-finish stretch as they want to get a look at this finish coming up here. Don has some cycling fans with him along the start-finish line. Don.
Well, Gene and Lauren, we're here, Brad and Lauren, we're here with Dr. Stephanie Hall and Gene Fitzhugh, and you both of you are regular fans of this cycling race.
Oh, absolutely. We've been to almost every U.S. Cycling Championship in the last how many years? In a lot of years.
How many years, Gene?
We've been to we went to Greenville, we went to Winston-Salem, we went to Chattanooga. We've been happy to have it here. We've been able to host teams of riders.
Who have you hosted?
We had 2 men in U23 the first year, and they ate me out of house and home. And then we switched
we hear that. We've heard that before.
We switched over to hosting women, and we've hosted DNA for the last 3 years. It's been a lot of fun. We learned a lot.
And Gene, I understand that you're an amateur cyclist?
I ride a lot. It's really fun to watch. We're going to go, we kind of speak to the economic benefit of having this because we're going to Oregon, which I think is going to be announced as the next championship.
Okay. I don't know if we were supposed to say that.
Okay, well, it's already out there now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I see them coming around
and
the corner
DNA
right
is
now,
in the
so
lead.
let's watch.
Yeah.
Dr. Hall, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Gene, thank you.
The U23's making an economic impact of their own on the grocery bill.
I was going to say, is there a theme here with the host housing? It was always fun to go into host housing, and as an athlete, you're pretty svet. You're lean, mean fight machine, and they are amazed at how much you can eat. You're running hot, so anything in there, you're burning it up.
Another one of the really unique elements of professional racing, hosting professional riders in the home and the impact that it can have on the community. My origin story in the sport came from hosting Tina Pick when I was a kid, the first bike race I ever saw after we volunteered to host in Columbus, Ohio. And here I am 20-some years later. Another attack going up the left side here. Riders desperately trying to get away at 8 laps to go. At what point, Lauren, do you say it's not going to happen? At what point do you shift from trying to get to a breakaway to trying to defend in a sprint?
Well, again, knowing historically how this has been won, I think you got to take, again, DNA Pro Cycling has the most riders in this peloton. You've got to take your chances. Kim Lucci, has come off of a crash. She's normally their last lead out. She's not feeling 100%. She's kind of near the back of the peloton. We haven't seen much of her at the front tonight, so that's an indicator that she's not doing well. So, when you kind of have that kind of playing out right here, again, pre-race, they could have said, hey, look, we're going to need you 100% no matter what and hope you're doing well. And they're hoping that she's going to feel great, but obviously she's not. So when you have your last lead out not doing well, she has moved up in the peloton, but, she's definitely not racing like herself. So then you just have to continue to go on the attack. You have to continue to make this race hard. You can't just lay down and take it to the line and let Kendall and Legion of Los Angeles have this race. They're competitors. They are going to go till the end, as they should, because you never know what's going to happen. You never wish or crash on anybody, but you just never know. A flat tire, anything like that is possible. So you've got to race to the finish, and you've got to race hard.
Saw CCB trying to get away there, putting one rider up the road. She was brought back almost immediately by DNA, and now DNA going to launch their own on Clinch Avenue here. Legion going to try and cover it. Now this is DNA using their numbers here. As you see, they've sent one up the road, but look what it did. Strings this field out. Single file. See Corinne Lebecki caught out a little bit back there in the yellow jersey. She's trying to stay calm, but she is one split away from being caught on the wrong side of this move.
Heidi, don't look back, keep going. You know Allegiant is going to try and come across and sit on this. You have to expect that, but she has to keep pushing forward, spend everything she can. There's 7 laps to go, and knowing that if and when she gets caught, one of her teammates will then go on the counterattack and do just what she's doing.
Franz away. I think that was Sam Schneider going with her for the Legion of Los Angeles team. So they'll make contact, and now here comes Lebecki up the right-hand side. She used a nice wheel to follow, and just like that, moves up into second position. That was one of the Miami Knights riders that moved up to the front. They're going to take charge in trying to chase this one down or join them.
Yeah, and it looked like Corinne was just drawn out from that. So now Corinne is going to try and jump across solo, try not to bring anybody with her, but it looked like a Miami Knights was trying to get on her to her wheel.
So that is actually Alexis Ryan that has gone with it. Now Lebecki going to counter that. She looks back to see who's with her. Miami Knights are there. DNA is there. Legion's got one with her. And now I think Saniska going to tack one on as well. Let's see if anyone goes over the top of Lebecki now.
This is probably one of the better things that Corinne can do if this is what DNA Pro Cycling is going to start attack and counterattack. She, the best defense is offense, and that's, one of the things she's going to have to do. All right, you guys want to make this hard? I can make this hard. I'll go with you. I'm willing to commit some effort, but I'm going to need everybody. I'm going to need Legion of Los Angeles to commit as well. And when that doesn't happen, here we are all back together, DNA back on the attack.
Big swarm on the front just before this climb. It's set up a little pre-race, little practice for the final lap here, because as you said, that is where the race really is. The turn that they just took, that right-hander that we watched them, a lot of riders are saying the race is either to there or this corner right here, the left-hander. But one thing's for sure, you gotta be in the top 2 coming out of this last corner right here.
No doubt, because from that corner right there, right now where they are, it's downhill through the start-finish line.
They're going to bring this one back. It's 6 to go. Still single file on the front. Lebecki unsuccessful in splitting it.
This is where DNA has to go again. Everything's hard. Everybody's tired. But you've got Holly Breck that just went on the attack. So now you need another DNA rider to go now. Even though you have that long downhill, it can swarm. You've got to keep the pressure on. You've got to make this race hard. You've got to keep going hard. You got to keep moving forward. You can't let it amass like this. You can't let everybody take a break.
Taylor Kirk White going to get up there now. We have seen the Miami Knights on the front a lot with Dre Butine so far, but this is, I think, the first time we've seen a move from Kirk White. We have also seen Andrea Sear just surfing in those front wheels, so I think Sear going to be the finisher for them tonight, the current American Criterium Cup Series leader. An obvious choice for a sprint finish here as the fastest finisher on that team.
And also seeing a Denver Disruptor sitting third wheel.
A lot of looking around on the front.
Ava Heckman up there can definitely help out the Denver Disruptors.
Fountain going to move up. Saniska getting riders up there. These are the riders, sort of the wild cards that may spoil the party for the teams that we've seen sprinting all season in this style of racing. DNA and Legion have met at least a dozen times already this year, but DNA, Legion, Fount, and let's say Jumbo Visma with Corinne Lebecki have not met.
We're seeing Aisha McGowan now towards the front. Again, someone we knew that's come back from World Tour and haven't seen really at the front end of the race, now seeing that. So she's understanding that there's 6 laps to go. Everybody's starting to fatigue a bit, and for her chances, she's got to move forward and take those opportunities when she can.
First time we're seeing a Butcher Box jersey getting to the front. I think that will be Jillian Bennett in the red jersey here to the front. Bennett going to try and figure something out.
Heather Fisher coming through with DNA Pro Cycling, and who's on her wheel? Legion of Los Angeles. So Legion basically is just covering any of the DNA gals up at the front and just saying, okay, which one of y'all is going next?
Well, so far this race going exactly how Legion hoped it would. They are using their riders exactly how they planned. Kendall Ryan has stayed out of trouble The other three have been able to chase back really any move that went. They've been represented in every move that's gone. They haven't missed one yet tonight. They haven't had to go into panic mode. They haven't had to organize a chase because they've been able to sit on every move and shut them down so far. So it's been going great for Legion of Los Angeles, and now it's up to Kendall Ryan to see if she can finish the job for her 4th national championship, her 3rd in a row here in Knoxville.
The big question will be if the Legion athletes haven't spent too much energy covering, and that's really what DNA is kind of banking on. If I'm going head to head, like of those two teams, that's their hope, is that her lead out is going to be too tired at this point to basically do a full-on lead out for her like she's had all season. And everybody else is going to kind of hope that same situation is going to play out too.
And you got to think that's part of what DNA was trying to do here, draw those other riders out, force Skylar, Sam, Alexis to chase so that they may not be able to control and line it up at the end of the race as they so typically do at the end of these criteriums. That's really been Legion's trademark, is to control the front of the bike race late in. They're a team that's not afraid to take big swings. They're not afraid to sort of show their dominance at the front, but they can't do it when teams like Fount and Emma Bethuel off the front here, because that obviously throws off the rhythm, makes it a little harder for them to control. But 5 laps to go, plenty of time for teams like Legion to bring this one back, so they're not worried yet about these moves going. You really only need to control it into the last 2 or 3 laps.
This is a team that DNA could play off of and use and go into cahoots with as far as putting DNA under pressure. It's like, hey, go to the Fount riders, talk to them. Look, y'all want up the road too, just as much. Let's do it together, not at an inopportune time on the downhill. You know, that's not the best time. Again, Fount is not the most experienced athletes, but some of the stronger riders here. We're going to need you to work together. Let us show you when we're going to attack. Follow our wheel. Let's work together and get off the front.
Here come Denver Disruptors to the front. They've been pretty quiet most of the day today, but now they bring 2 up to the front.
That's a good move by Ava Heckman. I'm pretty sure that's who that is. Just try and put the, let the other teams fight it out, and she's going to go up the road, get a little space. This is probably one of the bigger gaps we've seen all night, even though it is just one rider. This is the biggest gap that we've seen.
Good timing here at 5 to go on the counter. Can a solo rider do this for this long, though?
It's a big ask, but maybe she's working for Haley Evans to say, maybe, or just getting up the road. But you got to take a chance. You gotta take your opportunity when you can.
Lap counter taking them down to 4 laps to go as they roll through the line. Remember, no more free laps here, so if a rider has a mechanical this late in the race, they are out of luck. They can still go into the pit, but they don't get the free lap. They have to chase back on. You see the speedometer up there, 28 miles an hour as they roll through the line. And now Miami Knights on the radio. Taylor Kirk-White, I guess, talking to her two teammates just over to the right of her right there.
Yeah, sometimes you're not sure that they're right on your wheel, so you just go ahead and talk into the radio.
So this is a great example of how a solo rider sneaking away can sometimes sneak up on this field, be the underdog here, because all the other teams are looking at each other to determine who's going to chase, who's going to lead the effort to bring back this Denver Disruptor rider up the front. If they keep passing the buck and the job doesn't get done, that's great news for the solo rider up there. So the fate of this breakaway is really in the hands of the field. It's up to them how they respond. That one rider can only go so fast. She's going to do her maximum effort, but whether or not she stays away will really be determined on whether or not this field chases.
Now, if I was DNA here, I wouldn't drag the field around. I would essentially just go on the attack again. Try and make contact with Ava. That's what Ava's looking for. Like, hey, 1s and 2s, could you please meet me up the road? That would be great. But Ava's trying to get a head start essentially on Clinch Avenue for the final sprint. 4 laps to go. Here we go. Now we've got Holly Breck coming out of the peloton. This is exactly what they need to do. They need to bridge across, not bring the whole peloton, match up with Ava. Obviously, Ava should work with DNA Pro Cycling. Now you've got Legion on the back foot. So that's the best case scenario for DNA and for Denver Disruptors.
Hackman going to get a little bit of help up here out of the final corner as DNA will tack on, but it's only helpful if they wait for and work together, which is not happening here.
Well, there's that fine line of waiting and saying, okay, but see, yeah, wow, she's gone right through Ava. And Sineska's coming across with Kira O'Neill. Again, people are kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Now they're saying the race is going to be up the road. Potentially the podium is up the road. I'm going to take my chance. I'm going for it. All in.
Lap counter taking them down to 3 laps to go, and now the desperate attempts to get away off the front start flying here, because these riders know what happens if they wait around for a field sprint. That's how Kendall Ryan wins her 3rd in a row here in Knoxville. So these riders are desperately trying to figure out how to prevent that from happening a 3rd time here. Pace picking up again, seeing some gaps forming at the back. Speaks to the importance of fighting to stay near the front late in the race here, because now if you're at the back, you're there because you have to be. You're not there because you want to be.
The damage is done at the back of the peloton. When you see splits 50 riders back, that's the indicator that things are going south for those behind.
And it gets harder and harder to move up. We talked about that speed earlier, showing 28 miles an hour on the finish. When your top speed is only 30 or 31 miles an hour, it's harder to move up as the overall pace increases in the field here. So that's what's happening to these riders at the back. It was easier to move up earlier in the race because the overall speed was slower. But now that these riders are redlining just to stay in, it becomes harder and harder to move up.
Now we'll see Legion basically starting to amass together as a group. You know, you're talking earlier of when's the last time that people should try and attack and go away, and I think, again, DNA's got 8 riders here. I think they should just be going for it constantly tonight. When Legion has 4, you gotta take this race to Kendall a little bit harder than this. I know it's hard. I know it's a very daunting task, but if you don't do that, you know, we're gonna roll around. Here we are at 3 laps to go. They're gonna get together and they're gonna just execute their lead out.
Becky fighting back up to the front as well. Another one of the big favorites in this race. Again, the rider in the yellow jersey, a former winner here at the National Championships. She rides over in Europe at the highest level of the sport, but again, we don't see her race a lot of this style of racing. They call it criterium racing. And it is a whole different ball game than races like, let's say, the Tour de France, where you're doing multiple long days over mountains, a lot of climbing. This is short, fast, downtown racing. So if you're not tuned for this style of racing, it can be really difficult to adjust going from 4 or 5 hour days to a 70-minute race.
Right. This is kind of what she cut her teeth on, though, is crit racing and all of her national championships. And she's come up through collegiate racing with Marion Cycling. So, you know, if anybody knows how to just revert back to the past and how it plays out, it's definitely going to be Corinne. So good to see Kim Lucci's made it back up there. Again, I know she's not feeling well, giving a little head shake there. Just an indicator of whatever she's got left, she's going to give it to her teammates.
Now riders using the opportunity to move up the right side of our picture here, left side of the peloton. You have to do it now, because you're not going to get a better opportunity than this with the group all spread out right now. And this is the best time to go. These riders knew it. Fount going to get up there. DNA going to mark it as well as they try and get away before getting the bell for 1 lap to go. Now Bethuel again. She's been very aggressive tonight. We're number 40 on her back for the Fount Cycling Guild, and those dark green jerseys up on the front. And again, they will try and split this. They don't want to sprint against Kendall Ryan because they know how it's going to end. So this is Fount's only play here, really. This is Ryan moving up the, well, right in the middle of the group here on the white jerseys for Legion of Los Angeles, with her 3 lieutenants right next to her. Riders going down, just a touch of wheels in that group. That's going to affect a ton of riders getting caught behind them. No more free laps this late in the race. That is the end of their race. They're not going to get back into this one. A stroke of bad luck at the back of the group. But again, that's why you have to move up every chance you get.
That's unfortunate, yeah, and I just hope everybody's okay when you're going in a straight line like that. It's usually across the bars ever so slightly, so I hope everybody's okay.
Those little mistakes could change an entire national championship campaign. So now these riders at the back fighting to get back in here. As it's business as usual at the front. This is why Legion lines it up like this. This is why you get Kendall Ryan to the front in the last 3 laps. This is why Ryan's been able to win 3 of these national championships, because she's been so good at fighting for position. And now as we head into the final lap of racing, she is back on the front, looking to get her 3rd consecutive and 4th overall national championship here in Knoxville.
Sitting on Kendall Ryan's wheel was Corinne Lebecki, and sitting on Corinne Lebecki's wheel was Michaela McPherson of Human Powered Health. Again, someone we haven't talked about all night because she is the lone rider for Human Powered Health. Saving it for the sprint, trying to play her cards right, sitting on the sprinter's wheels for this evening.
This is what Legion does best, lining it up on the front to control this field for 1 lap of racing. The panic bells have to be ringing now. This is your worst nightmare if you're a sprinter in this field, because you're watching this race right away from you up the road right now. There is no better scenario for Legion of Los Angeles than 4 riders lined up on the last lap with Kendall Ryan at the back. This is now their race to lose. Here's Lebecki in the yellow. She's going to be the other big factor in this. DNA is also in the mix. And you talked about McPherson moving up.
Essentially, on Kendall's wheel is just kind of a battle of who gets to sit where. Corinne is essentially being the sweeper for Kendall and saying, no, I'm going to take this wheel. No one's going to take it from me. That's a hard spot to be in. There's a lot of emotional energy being used, making sure no one's trying to bump you off that wheel. No one is trying to bump her off the wheel. No one is trying to go for Michaela's wheel either. Excuse me.
Here comes DNA. Lebecki going to go now. She'll launch early, trying to come over the top of Legion of Los Angeles. Lebecki got some daylight here. McPherson trying to respond. That forces the hand for Legion of Los Angeles. Lebecki has just changed the plan for Legion here.
This is that right-hand turn we were talking about. That was what you had to win. Kendall knows it.
Yeah.
She was on Corinne's wheel, even though Corinne got the jump.
Here we go. Lebecki and Rivera going to go to the 2nd to final corner together. Lebecki leading it out. Ryan getting caught out a little bit here. She will get gapped into the last corner. And now Lebecki with some daylight out of the final turn. Corinne Lebecki fights to the front. A look over the shoulder, and Corinne Lebecki will be back in Stars and Stripes for Jumbo-Visma. The Euro Pro spoils the party for Legion of Los Angeles as she gets to the front, makes the jump, and holds on out of the last corner. Corinne Lebecki wins the 2023 USA Cycling Professional Criterium National Championships.
And you can see Kendall Ryan is not happy, but again, we talked about where you needed to be leading into Church Street. Like, that was the fight. If you could win that. Corinne went so early, Brad. I mean, she's a sprinter. You want 250 meters max. She was going at like 500 meters uphill. And you could see what that took to get to the finish line. They were just dragging across the finish line. Wow, what a sprint.